So, when I was 6 years old, my father disappeared, and my mother searched for him for 19 years. My father's name is Mansour Rashid Kikhya. He was at one point, the foreign minister of Libya. He was a human rights lawyer, and he was the permanent representative to the United Nations representing Libya. And then he defected from the regime in 1980 and ended up being the peaceful opposition leader to Gaddafi's regime, which then led to his politically motivated disappearance. And then my mother searched for him. So that happened when I was really young. I obviously was not an active player in the story. I was more of an observer. I did spend most of my life watching my mother campaigning for my father internationally. It wasn't until his body was miraculously found when I was 25 years old
Ooh.
that I realized, you know, the first time he disappeared, there was nothing I could do. But at 25 years old, as an adult, understanding the context of what's going on, I didn't want him to disappear a second time. So I decided
Ooh.
to, and I saw that the country was going through so much turmoil, and it seemed like a never-ending cycle of, destruction and loss. And I thought to myself, well, I can't wait for the truth to come to me. I need to be an active player. I choose to be an active player, and I want to do this to make sense of my life and what happened to my father. So I chose to tell the story, and I chose film to tell it.
Imagine getting a phone call that your father, a man you haven't seen since you were 6 years old, has just been found. Not alive, not even as a skeleton in a grave, but stuffed inside a commercial freezer, hidden in a villa belonging to one of the world's most brutal dictators, nearly 2 decades after he disappeared. That's exactly what happened to Jihan K in October 2012. Her father, Mansour Rashid Kikhya, was once Libya's foreign minister and UN ambassador. He was also one of Muammar Gaddafi's most prominent opponents, and for 19 years his family had no idea what happened to him, until the fall of Gaddafi's regime revealed a chilling secret hidden just steps from the dictator's palace. Mansour Rashid Kikhya was born in Benghazi in 1931, into a prominent Libyan family. He studied law and political science at the Sorbonne in Paris, one of the best educations money could buy at the time. When he returned to Libya, he quickly rose through the ranks of the diplomatic service, serving in France and Algeria before joining the Libyan mission to the United Nations in 1968. Then came September 1, 1969. A 27-year-old army officer named Muammar Gaddafi led a bloodless coup that overthrew King Idris. At first, educated professionals like Kikhya had reason to hope. Gaddafi spoke of Arab nationalism, socialism, and freeing Libya from Western influence. Many educated Libyans, tired of the monarchy's corruption, gave the young colonel a chance. Kikhya was no exception. Despite his ties to the old regime, he was too talented to sideline. Gaddafi kept him on, and in 1972, Kikhya became Libya's foreign minister. But the honeymoon didn't last. Gaddafi's regime grew increasingly erratic and violent. By the mid-1970s, revolutionary committees were roaming Libyan streets, carrying out summary executions of anyone deemed an enemy of the revolution. Gaddafi called dissidents stray dogs who deserved to be eliminated. Kikhya watched from his post at the United Nations. He'd been appointed permanent representative in 1975 as his homeland descended into fear. He served diplomatically, representing Libya on the world stage, but inside he was sickened. In 1980, he made a decision that would ultimately cost him his life. He resigned, not quietly either. Kikhya publicly broke with Gaddafi, citing the regime's summary executions and human rights abuses. He moved to the United States, settled in Vienna, Virginia, and began building a new life. He married Baha Omari, a Syrian-American artist, and started a second family. They had 2 children, Rashid and little Jihan. But Kikhya didn't just disappear into comfortable American exile. He became one of Gaddafi's most effective opponents. He founded the Libyan Human Rights Association in 1984. 2 years later, he established the Libyan National Alliance, an opposition group trying to unite anti-Gaddafi forces abroad. He spoke at human rights conferences, gave interviews, and kept the pressure on. for a man like Gaddafi, who brooked no opposition, Kikia was a constant thorn, and Gaddafi had a very long reach. December 10th, 1993, started like any other day for the Kikia family in Virginia. But halfway around the world, in Cairo, Egypt, their world was about to shatter. Mansour had traveled to Cairo for a meeting of the Arab Organization for Human Rights Board of Trustees. He was a founding member, exactly the kind of work he dedicated his exile to. He checked into the Safir Hotel, attended his meetings, and seemed in good spirits. Witnesses later reported seeing him sitting in a coffee shop near the hotel, drinking coffee with two men. The men were believed to be working for Egypt's feared Mukhabarat, the intelligence service. Then, a black limousine with diplomatic license plates pulled up. Three men approached, and Mansour Rashid Kikia, former foreign minister, UN ambassador, human rights advocate, vanished from the face of the earth. He was never seen alive again. Baha Kikia, his wife, didn't know what to think at first. Maybe he'd been detained. Maybe there was some mistake. But days passed, then weeks, then months. No word, no ransom demand, no body, nothing. The CIA launched an investigation. It took 4 years. In August 1997, they reached a conclusion. Egyptian agents had kidnapped Kikia at Libya's request. They'd handed him over to Abdullah Senussi, Gaddafi's intelligence chief and brother-in-law, who interrogated him at the residence of Libya's ambassador to the Arab League. Then, Senussi shipped him back to Libya, and there, the trail went cold. For 19 years. Baha Omari Kikia was not the type of woman to sit quietly and wait. She was an artist by training, born in Syria, educated in Damascus and Baghdad. She'd built a life in New York, selling her artwork before she met Mansour. Together, they'd built a family across continents: Paris, New York, Virginia. Now her husband was gone, and she had 2 young children to raise, but she never stopped searching. She traveled to the Middle East repeatedly, chasing rumors, meeting with anyone who might have information. She wrote letters, made phone calls, begged officials for help. She even did something almost unbelievable. She arranged a secret meeting with Muammar Gaddafi himself. Picture this: an artist, a mother, an American citizen, meeting the world's most notorious dictator in the middle of the Libyan desert in the dead of night. It sounds like a scene from a John le Carré novel. But Baha did it. She sat across from the man who likely ordered her husband's murder, looking for answers. Gaddafi, of course, told her nothing. For years, the family existed in a kind of limbo. Jihan K, their youngest daughter, was only 6 when her father disappeared. She grew up with faint memories, a face here, a voice there. It was her mother who kept Mansour's memory alive, who told the children stories about the father they barely knew. She was the source of most of all the truths about my father, Jihan later said. She always had all the stories and was on the front line. In 2011, the Arab Spring reached Libya. What started as peaceful protests against Gaddafi's 42-year rule quickly escalated into civil war. By August, rebels had taken Tripoli. Gaddafi went into hiding, and on October 20, 2011, he was captured and killed near his hometown of Sirte, dragged from a drainage pipe and executed by his own people. The regime fell. Libya descended into chaos. But for families like the Kikiyas, the fall of Gaddafi meant something else entirely: the chance to finally learn the truth. In October 2012, almost exactly a year after Gaddafi's death, investigators searching through properties belonging to the old regime made a gruesome discovery. In a villa in a southern district of Tripoli, a property belonging to Abdullah Senussi, Gaddafi's intelligence chief, they found a commercial freezer. Inside, stuffed among other bodies, was a corpse. It had been frozen for years, preserved like evidence in a crime that someone wanted to hide. At first, investigators thought it might be someone else entirely. Imam Musa Sadr, a Lebanese Shiite cleric who disappeared in Libya in 1978. That case was equally mysterious, equally painful for another family. But DNA testing ruled out Musa Sadr, and Mahmoud al-Kikia, Mansour's brother, had a strong suspicion who it really was. He traveled to Sarajevo, to the headquarters of the International Commission on Missing Persons and provided DNA samples, his own and those of Mansour's sons. The results came back positive. After 19 years, Mansour Rashid Kikia was found. He hadn't died in some distant prison or been buried in an unmarked desert grave. He'd been frozen, stored like meat, in a villa near Gaddafi's palace, literally steps from where the dictator who ordered his death had lived his lavish life. Why? We still don't know. Abdullah Sanusi, interrogated after his extradition from Mauritania, admitted the body existed but offered no clear explanation. Maybe it was evidence of a crime that couldn't be destroyed. Maybe it was a trophy. Maybe it was just Gaddafi's sick sense of humor. For Jihan K, the discovery changed everything. She was 25 years old when they found her father's body, an adult now, capable of processing what her 6-year-old self could not. And she made a decision. She would not let her father disappear again. She spent 9 years making a documentary, 9 years sifting through archives, interviewing her father's colleagues, piecing together the fragments of a life she barely remembered. The result was My Father and Gaddafi, which premiered at the 2025 Venice International Film Festival. The film isn't just about Mansour Kikia, it's about Libya itself, a country that was colonized by Italy, survived genocide, enjoyed a brief period as a kingdom, then endured 42 years of dictatorship that erased so much of its collective memory. Through archival footage, home videos, and interviews, Jihan reconstructs not only her father's story, but her own connection to a homeland she barely knows. She asks difficult questions. What does it mean to be Libyan, without Gaddafi, without the politics, without the fear? The documentary ends at her father's grave, in a cemetery near Benghazi. It's largely empty, too dangerous even now for most people to visit. But Jihan goes. She stands there, in the place where her father's body finally rests, and she makes her peace. Mansour Kikia's story intersects with another part of Gaddafi's world, the women who surrounded him. Gaddafi was famous for his Amazonian Guard, officially called the Revolutionary Nuns. These were young women, trained in firearms and martial arts, who swore oaths of chastity and protected the dictator with their lives. Western journalists loved the spectacle. Beautiful women in military uniforms, carrying Kalashnikovs, following Gaddafi everywhere. He traveled with about 15 of them at a time, assigned to security or housekeeping. But behind the spectacle was horror. In 1998, one guard, a woman named Aisha, threw herself in front of Gaddafi during an assassination attempt. She took bullets meant for him and died on the spot. 7 others were wounded. Gaddafi called her his favorite. When the regime fell in 2011, the truth about the Amazonian Guard began to emerge. 5 of them came forward with accusations. They'd been raped and abused by Gaddafi himself, by his sons, by senior officials. Some said they were offered a choice between suicide and executing rebels. Others described a system where young women were recruited with promises of honor and glory, only to become sexual slaves. A book published in 2012, The Prisoners in Gaddafi's Harem, detailed systematic rape, not just of women but of men and children too. It claimed Gaddafi raped members of his Amazonian Guard daily. This was the world Gaddafi built, a world where beautiful women stood at his side, protecting him in public while being destroyed by him in private. A world where a respected diplomat could vanish for 19 years and end up in a freezer. And what about the woman at the center of it all, Gaddafi's wife? Safia Farkash married Muammar Gaddafi in 1970, a year after he took power. She was a nurse. They met when he was hospitalized for appendicitis. He claimed it was love at first sight. For 41 years, she stayed with him through everything, his affairs, his brutality, his growing madness. She bore him 7 children and lived quietly in the background, rarely appearing in public. Few photographs of them together exist. But Safia wasn't just a silent wife. She was enormously wealthy. Estimates of her personal fortune reached $30 billion. She owned Barak Air, a private airline that monopolized the transport of Libyan pilgrims to Mecca. She wielded power behind the scenes. When Gaddafi fell, Safia fled. On August 30th, 2011, she crossed into Algeria with her children, Hannibal, Aisha, stepson Mohammed, and adopted daughter Hana. A convoy of armored Mercedes-Benzes slipping across the border at Gadam's. From Algeria, they moved to Oman, where they were granted political asylum. And there, Safia Farkash disappeared from public view. In 2016, rumors surfaced that she'd been allowed to return to Libya as part of a national reconciliation effort. Local officials in Baida, her hometown, reportedly approved her return along with some grandchildren. But given Libya's ongoing chaos, it's unclear if that ever actually happened. As of 2025, Safia Farkash remains an enigma. The woman who stood beside one of history's most brutal dictators for 4 decades now lives in obscurity, her fortune frozen, her past unspoken. Mansour Rashid Kikia was given a state funeral in Benghazi on December 3, 2012. Family and friends gathered to honor a man who'd given his life for his principles. But his story, and the story of that freezer, raises uncomfortable questions. How many others vanished into Gaddafi's Libya? How many bodies are still hidden? The freezer held more than one corpse, but we don't know whose else. The villa belonged to Abdullah Sanusi, Gaddafi's intelligence chief, who is now in Libyan custody facing trial. But the full truth may never come out. Jihan K's documentary tries to answer some of these questions. It premiered at Venice in 2025, winning praise for its exhaustive research and emotional depth. One reviewer noted that the research and ability to stitch archive footage into a coherent story is impressive, but the film also reveals the limits of what we can know. Jihan admits she barely remembers her father. The personal connection she searches for remains just out of reach, a ghost, like Mansour himself. Still, she found something. By reclaiming her father's story, she rebuilt her own life. By documenting Libya's troubled history, she preserved a piece of her homeland that Gaddafi tried to erase. And by asking hard questions, she ensures that Mansour Rashid Kikia, diplomat, dissident, human rights advocate, will not disappear again. Today, Mansour Kikia's body lies in that Benghazi cemetery, finally at rest. His killer, Muammar Gaddafi, is dead, killed by his own people. Abdullah Sanusi awaits trial. And the freezer where Mansour spent 19 years, probably scrapped for parts or sitting in some evidence locker, a relic of a regime that thought it could hide anything. But here's what Gaddafi never understood. You can't hide the truth forever. Baha Kikia never stopped searching. Jihan K never stopped asking questions. And now, because of them, the world knows what happened to Mansour Rashid Kikia. He was a man who stood up to a dictator, who risked everything for human rights, who paid the ultimate price. And in the end, he won. Because his name is remembered, his story is told,